do we, as people of the society, navigate the duality of resilience and the need for rest?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. And I would say, especially from the perspective of a Black woman in America, we have been bred to believe that strength is power, and power comes with resilience. Power also comes with working extra hard, showing up differently than everybody else around us just to show that we are even worthy, so not even the best or better, but worthy. And it's really sad because rest is a requirement. And I know personally growing up, I don't think that we talked about resting. It was laziness.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wednesday Wellness Debrief. I'm your host, Brittany, and today I'm joined by my lovely, lovely, lovely guest for Mental Health Awareness Month. Say it with me, it's Dr. Makeba Hill, correct?
Yes, Dr. Makeba is fine.
Dr. Makeba, awesome.
Yes.
We're here to talk mental health. We're here to discuss mental health and maybe some controversial questions just to throw it at you.
Ooh, okay. Sounds good.
Yay! So we're going to first get started with who is Makeba. I always start with my guests of who they are outside of their work, just to kind of get to know you type of question.
Okay. All right. So I am Makeba. I am a mother, a daughter. I am a yogi in the making. That's what I try to tell people. I like to do yoga, but I am not a yoga master of any sort. I am a cat lover. I've got three cats. Three cats in the house and about 4 that come to the backyard that I take care of. So yes, I love cats, but I also love dogs. And I had a very sweet dog that I had for a long time. I had to put him down a few years ago, and I've been missing Teddy ever since. So, cat lover that loves dogs as well. I mean, there are other things I could share. I don't know. What do you want to know?
I think this is a good start. I think just kind of getting the foundation, like you're an animal lover, you're a dog lover. And then, and also that you're also an alumnus of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
Yes.
That's something we cannot forget about.
That's right. Right.
But we're going to jump into the first question.
Okay.
So, how do we, as people of the society, navigate the duality of resilience and the need for rest?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. And I would say, especially from the perspective of a Black woman in America, we have been bred to believe that strength is power, and power comes with resilience. Power also comes with working extra hard, showing up differently than everybody else around us just to show that we are even worthy, so not even the best or better, but worthy. And it's really sad because rest is a requirement. And I know personally growing up, I don't think that we talked about resting. It was laziness, kind of sort of like if you're laying around, it's kind of laziness. And so the expectation is to be doing all the time. And so in my work now, I talk a lot about the value of thinking about the human experience as, yes, we are human beings, not human doings. And so we should not be so driven to be doing all the time, because then we miss out on the best part of the human experience. And that's just kind of being and appreciating and resting. It's part of it.
Now, from your perspective, how does physical health intersect with emotional wellness?
Mind, body, and spirit is all connected. And so when we think about mental health and emotional wellness and all of those things, it is evident. There's lots of research that shows that when your mind and body are not in alignment, that's when you experience physical dysfunction, dis-ease. I was just speaking to one of my clients earlier today, and she was talking about some lung and sinus issues that she's had all of her life. And the funny thing is, it's not necessarily related to her mental health, but it is related to her spiritual health and
Mm,
things that she needs to work on spiritually in terms of listening to herself, listening, trusting herself. It's just really interesting how they're all intersecting.
mm. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I
They
know for
don't.
me, and we talked about it briefly, for
Hmm.
Black women, it's kind of like, no, I'm just going to push past it because there's people are relying on me. People need things
Right,
from me, and it's
right,
not going to get done unless I do it. But you
right.
can't pour from an empty cup. And
You can't. You can't. And I had a boss some years ago that, he talked about work-life balance and all of those things, but he was not an example. Like he wasn't a good example because he was working, working, working to the bone, 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 and like all day, all night to the point where he wasn't sleeping. And in the wee hours of the morning, he ended up falling down a flight of stairs and broke some ribs. And I was like, obviously, God was trying to tell you to sit down somewhere because there's nothing you can do. The job has to keep moving. Like, we have to figure out what to do when you're not in place. So, to me, it showed the fact that the work will get done. You know, you unfortunately are replaceable very easily in the workplace.
mm,
But had his situation turned out to be more tragic than it actually was, they could not replace him in his family. His wife and his children would have missed him dearly. So we have to think through the balance of work life balance more seriously, I think, and just really think about the value of our lives
mm,
and the quality of our lives because we're not just here to work. We're
hmm.
here to be, productive citizens, yes, but to enjoy the fruit of the land, the earth, and all of the things it has to offer. We
Yeah.
can't do that when we're behind a desk all day.
And I think how the world is going, I think a lot of people put their focus into work. And it's
Hmm.
like, there'll be a tomorrow. There'll be a tomorrow. There'll be a
Right.
tomorrow. And like we said with your boss, your boss was so focused on like there'll be a tomorrow that you fell down the
Yeah.
stairs and you're just like, yeah, well tomorrow's here. So
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
focus on what's
Focus
happening right
now.
now.
Focus now. He was just so tired and like we don't need to work ourselves to the point of exhaustion like that because then we're not functioning at our best,
Mm,
right? Like, and we want to be our best. I think the other challenge is or has been just how accessible we all are now. With cell phones, email, all of those things, it's, people expect you to respond right away. So we have to set the standard, especially as leaders, about what that looks like. Modeling is very important. If
mm.
he, said that rest was important and he actually rested and he kind of, fell back a little bit on us in terms of responding right away, then the culture would be different. So it kind of starts, I think, at the top, especially in the workspace.
Oh yeah. I've been in positions where like you said, it's touted for work life balance, but you're seeing the
Right.
higher up sending emails at 12 o'clock in the evening, 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, well, if this is the standard that you're holding, I have to uphold the standard as well. If not, I
Right.
look like I'm slacking.
Right. Right. Right.
It's hard because you want to be a good worker and you want these
Mhm.
things. And then especially if you were the words of my mother, you are the only chocolate chip in the cookie dough. It is if you're not keeping up with the standard, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm gonna have a big target on my back because
Right.
I am the only chocolate chip and everyone's working these really long hours, but
Really
I'm
long
not
hours.
trying to preserve
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm. And then you add in children. Like I don't know if you have children at this point,
Not
but
yet.
as an executive or even an aspiring executive, when you add children to the mix, it's like, oh wow, now I have to go home and I'm not just working on my work stuff and regular home stuff. I've got to take care of the children. Like I'm responsible for all of these things. So there's not even, I don't think, at least in my experience, balance in the marital relationships, especially if you have two high powered individuals working, who takes the brunt of the child care responsibility? And then do you outsource it? Like we outsource so many things. And then, are you really enjoying your children and are they enjoying you? So it's a big challenge, I think, thinking about just valuing your time, valuing your energy,
Mm,
and preserving your mental health.
mm. Like you said, outsourcing. I was watching a
Hmm.
TikTok where literally someone was like, "Yeah, it's like almost $4,000 to put my child in daycare for both." They had two
Yeah,
children, like a baby
yeah,
and like a 3-year-old.
yeah,
For them, like the wife was basically working just to pay for the daycare and nothing
yeah.
else. And that's something that's really stressful.
Mhm,
Speaking of outsourcing to the community,
mhm.
jumping into the next question,
Yes.
what role does community play in emotional wellness?
Good question. So I think from my perspective, as a member of the community that I'm in, that I feel very responsible for offering opportunities for the community to heal and allow spaces for them to rest and things like that, and to model how it's important. So, like, I have events, local events here in Atlanta where we do heart opening ceremonies and we also do sound baths and meditation and just introduce them to other types of activities and modalities to help them actually even think about the
Mm,
fact that there might be a spiritual being in there that needs to be tapped into and loved on. So I think that the community at large should continue to offer outreach spaces, places, activities, events, and things for people as outlets
mm.
to work on their mental health.
And speaking, adding into that,
Hmm.
that leads into the next question, basically from the community. And you offering these events, and you probably see a lot of people have vulnerable moments that they've probably been hiding inside themselves for a
Oh, yeah.
very, very, very long time. And you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot. In what ways can vulnerability be embraced as a strength, especially coming to events or
Mm.
communicating with you? Because I
Mhm.
can speak for myself growing up, and this is no particular person or any event, it's just like vulnerability is kind of looked down upon as weakness.
Oh, yes. So, for sure. I hear you. I see you. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I think that that's part of the work. It's part of the work is changing the mindset about what that means, what it looks like, and all of that. Like vulnerability, emotion, empathy, all of these things that, especially characteristics that women have been viewed as weakness, need to be rethought, like reframed. Vulnerability means that you're open.
Mm,
And being open means that you care. And caring means that you're not going to hurt anybody. You're not
mm,
going to hurt anybody. So maybe the world will be a better place. Like, there's just a lot of things I think as humans we have misplaced values. And the vulnerability piece definitely comes up. And so I think it's important to offer opportunities for people on a one-on-one basis to tap into their feelings and their emotions. So, I do group activities, but I also do one-on-one. I actually did a one-on-one retreat experience for a person. We went to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and it was a beautiful experience because she got exactly what her spirit needed.
mm,
And it was like it was by design. I didn't even know as I was planning it that it was intended to be a one-on-one experience. But while we were there, we both were having dreams about things and different things. And like just the way it unfolded, it was completely and totally magical. And vulnerability was one of the things that came up for her. And we were able to spend a lot of time just working one-on-one with softening her. And at the end of it, she was flowing like the river, like the ocean. It was like she couldn't stop just flowing. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. So, yeah, we have to address it on a large scale, just in terms of the mindset around what strength is, this illusion that anything that's not brute force is weakness, but then also provide spaces and experiences for people to work on their own like personal development and growth.
Yeah. And especially when you get away from your environment, that typically is what stresses you out. A brand new environment to really sit in that vulnerability.
Yes. Yes.
I make the joke, and it's the Real Housewives. She said it, where she's like, "I've scheduled my cry for later when I'm away, and I can have a moment to myself."
Oh my god!
And that is, once I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. And then kind of also the researcher, one of the controversial questions he sent my way, which is amazing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. Basically, how that strong Black woman cape that we wear, how that impacts us as Black women, how we see ourselves in the world, how we go to work, how we do those things. From your perspective, do you feel as though that it's more harmful than it is beneficial? Do you feel it's more beneficial than harmful?
The cloak that we wear?
The cloak that we wear, yes.
I think that anything that is not authentic and truly open is a problem. And I do feel like a lot of Black women, a lot of us wear a mask on an everyday basis. And I don't think that's healthy. And once we remove the mask, and allow people to see who we truly are and accept who we truly are, then we become healthier overall. Like I think one of the interesting things that I've discovered in my research is that Black women suffer disproportionately with autoimmune diseases, especially lupus. And when you look at what the body is trying to tell you with lupus in particular, is that you're attacking yourself. And we end up doing that a lot. Like we attack who we are. We deny who we are. We quiet ourselves. We allow our light to be dimmed. And so the more we do that, the more our body is fighting it. And so that's why we end up attacking ourselves, and it manifests as sickness. So no, I don't think that it's a good thing that we are wearing a cloak if it's not, our authentic selves. It's got to be real. We got to be real. We got to be who we are unapologetically.
Oh, yeah, 365 days. And I think living in the world that we live in, I think that does make it a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But that goes into the next question as Black women. But how does generational trauma influence our emotional wellness?
Oh, that's major. I'm sure you know this.
Oh yes. All the classes at FAMU that they mandatorily took me to take those African American history classes. I have no choice. But it gave a better understanding of, we come from a very long line of very strong people. But sometimes is like, what is too strong from time to time, and kind of finding that balance, I guess.
Yeah, well, so this is it's a sensitive subject because I deal with a lot of people who have generational trauma, and it's unfortunate because it's not always strength, or it doesn't always okay, let me try to frame this. Okay, so yes, often what comes with generational trauma is hiding things and burying our thoughts and feelings. And so those things attack us. They attack us over time. So like I deal with a lot of clients who have been sexually abused as children, from maybe a family member or a friend of the family, and they told their mother or they told their grandmother or whatever, and they swept it under the rug. And so that person had to grow up with that trauma and try to overcome it as an adult and get into relationships and other situations with this heaviness from the past, that it's really, I believe, it just stems from we as Black people having to deal with all kinds of things
Mhm.
and thinking that the more we deal with it, the more we're able to just get through it, the stronger we are. But it ends up creating big challenges for people along the line. And it just continues to get passed down along, down the line. And that is something that we need to stop, something that we really need to work on.
And I think that that's also tied to generational as well, and kind
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
elders of inviting
Yeah,
someone to the family cookout that you know that has been inappropriate with people,
right,
and like their family, it's fine. We dealt with it. Like, but the person that has it, it's still like, wait a minute, that
right, right,
you
right,
brought them
right.
around other people for it to possibly happen again. That's
Hmm.
not a good thing. And I
Hmm.
think because Black people, we are so in community with each other, it's kind of like, regardless of what they did, we still love them. And
Right.
I think that's something I admire. But at the same time, I was like, where does the accepting of people into the community when they've hurt people, and
Yeah.
I think there's like a balance sometimes that's off a
Well,
little
and
bit.
my big thing is protecting the children. Like, we've
Yep.
got to protect the kids because they're innocent and they don't know any better. So we need to show them what it looks like to stand up for someone
Mm.
who means something to us. And I've just seen too much to even go down this path. I just have seen too much. It really irks me to see that.
Mm.
But then the other way that I think the generational trauma shows up is in relationships with spouses and things. And, just the idea that as a Black woman, I need to be strong and independent because that's what my mother taught me, right? And so, as a strong and independent Black woman, I'm not going to take any mess because she didn't take any mess. And so, it just kind of personally affected me in my relationship with my husband, my ex husband, because I feel like maybe I was always looking for something to go down. Like, I was always looking for the next shoe to drop. I couldn't fully trust him because growing up, my mom embedded in me that I shouldn't trust any men.
Mm.
And that's just in my family, right? Everyone else has their own little dynamic in their own family, but it has an impact on us today. It has an impact on our lives. So, as a healer, one of the things that I do and I help other people with is identifying what the thing is that we're supposed to heal from so we don't pass it down to the next generation. So I don't, my daughter knows that she can be a strong, independent woman, but that she could also be open and soft and allow herself to be held in a relationship with a man, and that not all men are dogs and things like that my mama said.
I I think maybe that's also generational because I too got that message growing up of very much don't trust these men, do, have your
Yeah.
own, all these other things. And I think the intention is well, which they're not completely and totally wrong, but at the same time, as a child, you're just like, there's no other alternative, but men are just horrible, and I need to keep my
Right.
money to myself. And so when you
Right.
get in these relationships with your partners are like, well,
What did I do?
what did I do? What
Exactly.
where? I'm like, I haven't done anything to do that, and so that's
Yeah.
a lot of unpacking. Even for
Yeah.
me, I can acknowledge it.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
for me and my husband. That's something that I'm
Mhm.
unpacking for myself. Of
Yeah.
I like my independence. I like my things the way they do, but I am in partnership with you. As long as it's nothing crazy, I'm like, we
Right.
can compromise. We can do the things, but eh,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
dives us into the next question: how does the intersectionality of race and gender impact access to mental health resources?
That's a good question. So in my former life, just a few years ago, I worked in healthcare. Healthcare strategy and behavioral health was one of the areas that I helped with business development, building relationships, building our strategy, building our business, and kind of understanding the population, what's available, what's offered, how people access it, right? And what I found is that accessibility is a challenge for people of color, especially low income people of color, because it's expensive to get good care. And then also, just behavioral health services are, I think, difficult to navigate
Mm.
for a person. So, and I have experience with a couple of people that I know who have been diagnosed with certain mental health disorders. And I think a big challenge there is in thinking about how Black and brown people, how women are diagnosed differently from our non BIPOC, counterparts.
Hmm.
I think that sometimes the decisions are faster about, oh, that person is this or that or whatever. The notion of how far gone we are or whether it's true or not, like whether we're trying to get medication or, just things like that. I feel like there's distrust in the system and a lack of care, full on care for Black and brown people and women in the mental health spaces. So it's just a challenge to navigate. That's all I would say.
No, I'm doing my thesis on prenatal and postnatal and just care for Black women in
Mhm.
healthcare spaces for during their pregnancy. And the
Yeah.
research I'm finding of Black women, women in general, but especially Black women with these stories of, I was not heard. I vocalized what was happening and I was told, oh, it's just in your head. Oh, that's part of the
Right.
process.
Right.
And then an hour later, something happened to them where they lost the baby
Mhm.
or the baby lost a heartbeat or something of that
Yeah.
nature. And I think a lot of times we're not listened to. And I'm speaking from a place of privilege where I have a college degree, I'm getting my master's and all these
Mhm.
other things, and I can find the access to healthcare.
Yeah.
But seeing other family members who don't have the privileges I have
Right.
or
Right.
friends, it's very heartbreaking, and it's kind of like you ask them to trust the system sometimes, and sometimes the system doesn't have
Yeah.
their best interests at heart, which is very
I
disheartening,
agree. I
honestly.
agree. I really think that it's not made for the general public. And I have a doctorate and a master's degree as well. And when I had my daughter, I was young, not so young. I was going on 30, I think. And the resident at the hospital during my labor just wanted to do some stuff to me that I knew that I didn't need to get done because my other doctor said that I didn't need to get that done. But he was like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, but no, I don't. And I'm an educated woman and worked in healthcare. So
Mm-hmm.
I, through my tears, I told him, no, the hell, you are not going to do X, Y, and Z because whatever. But I could just imagine how other people must feel when they're in those types of situations because I really felt like he was bullying me.
Mm.
And then I also think about like Serena Williams. Didn't she have like a major
Yep.
issue
Serena
when
Williams
she?
had blood clots. Beyonce
Yeah,
even stated for herself that she had issues with her delivery
yeah,
with her twins. And
yeah.
again, and you live in Atlanta. I was, my last interview was with her name is Alicia Hurt, and she's a doula
Mhm,
out, in Bainbridge,
mhm,
Georgia. And
mhm.
just like the quality of care and all the work and effort she's putting into making sure people
Yeah.
are heard, especially
Mhm.
like during delivery, because
Right.
again, the communication is not fully there because the provider has their own mindset of what they have their own unconscious bias, unfortunately.
That's a big thing. And that comes into play in the mental health space as well. It's
Mm.
just bias. It's major, major bias.
Yeah, but that also ties into storytelling for us.
Mhm.
Like right now, of us telling stories for the next question of how can storytelling be a tool for healing and empowerment?
Oh, storytelling is major. I think, like we were talking about earlier with generational trauma and how our families kept things close, didn't talk about it. Now is the time where we just need to be telling everything. Every
Mm.
story is important. I think that a lot of us have experienced the things that we've experienced in our lives because we're supposed to talk about it and share because we have so much more in common than not. And that's in the Black community, but also across the board. Like if we start talking about, for me and my work, is if we start talking about these visions that we have and they come true, or if we start talking about this knowing or these gifts that I have that my family told me was the devil, or that, I
Mm,
shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't communicate with my ancestors. I shouldn't communicate with spirits because that's wrong. Like when we start talking about it more, it becomes more normalized, and you'll see that there are other people out there that are experiencing similar things. And I think it just builds up the strength. We have these gifts for a reason, and it's part of our strength, the strength of who we are. And if we think about mental health, a lot of these gifts are framed as mental health disorders. So, like if you have visions or if you hear things, and these are messages from the spirit realm. In my world, we have a lot of that, but maybe they're not. I don't know. So people end up getting these mental health diagnoses, and they don't know if they can trust these gifts or not. And
mm,
then they get medicated, and it keeps going on and on. So there is, I believe, a thin line between mental health disorder and spiritual gifts. But the more we actually talk about what we're experiencing, the better. I think we just need to tell our stories.
yeah. And I think for a lot of people, especially I know for me in therapy, like once I've been telling my story, like, oh, I feel so much better. I
Oh,
feel very
yes.
much heard.
It's very therapeutic.
I agree with that. And I
Mhm.
think it's kind of also kind of tying back to generational of like you hear stories from like your great great grandmother or your great great grandfather, and
Mhm.
storytelling is a part of our history and our culture and
Yeah.
makes us who we are as people,
Mhm.
honestly.
Mhm.
It's it's a nice feeling. But we made it to the last question. Do 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 do.
Okay.
How can future generations be equipped to prioritize emotional health?
Hmm. It starts with us, with the families. So we have to make sure that we embed in them the importance of it. But that means that need to heal ourselves first. We need to recognize and see that it's important to rest. And then we need to model it for our children so they can see that it's important. It's just like vacations, right? If you grew up never taking a vacation, you don't know that
Mm,
the value of a vacation. But if you grow up, you recognize that vacation and rest is important. You do that, you instill that in your children, and they will do that as well. So I think
mm.
that it's important to model the behavior, and it starts with us.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I hear the comments like they're young, they won't understand what's happening until they're
Mm-mm.
older, but not realizing that like I think it's the first 5 years they're absorbing
Yes,
everything, and as they get
there.
older,
Yes.
you watch them grow and they start acting a particular way, very similar, mirroring what you did, and
Yeah.
you're like, where did you learn that? You're like, and the person on the outside watching, like, you know where they learned it. I don't know why.
Uh-huh. Yes, they are very impressionable little beings. And a lot of them come to this earth with a lot more knowing than we think they do.
Look, my husband has nieces and nephews, and just
Hmm.
speaking with them of the wonderment of a child because they're so honest. The filter hasn't been like kind of yanked out of them, and
Right.
I actually enjoy it. I think some adults like no, I'm like no, what the fuck? I'm enjoying this. I want to hear what
Uh-uh.
they have to say. It's
Sometimes
so
they're too honest.
insightful.
Ooh, child, no. Sometimes they're just way too honest.
I will admit, sometimes I'm like, now I understand why you said that comment. You did not have to say that comment. That was not necessary. I
Yeah.
appreciate your input, but no.
Yes, sometimes they're a little rude.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to pull them back. Like I know the intention was not to be rude, but you were actually
Right,
being rude.
right,
And
right.
again, showing them like
Yes.
their boundaries and boundaries
Yep.
exist, and we're going to start teaching you. And it comes from the community and the parents and the sponginess that they're
Agreed.
observing.
Agreed. Agreed.
But Dr. Makeba, thank you so much
Yes.
for joining me. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Where can the people find you? Are you having any events? What your socials are?
Yes, yes. Okay, so this Saturday in Atlanta, I'm having an event called Truth in Bloom. And this is where we'll come together. We'll have a cacao ceremony, which opens the heart. I'm offering hape, which is a spiritual snuff that helps to open the mind and ground the spirit. Does a lot of things depending on what the spirit needs. But we're also going to be tapping into the heart space and learning how to channel automatic writing, which is a very interesting tool to help you connect with your higher self. So we're doing that on Saturday from 6 to 10 p.m. And then I have a fabulous Mystique in Morocco experience where we are going to Morocco in November for a healing retreat and culture tour. So for anyone who's interested, it's primarily for women. If you're interested, you can find more information by contacting me. So if you go to my website, it's drmakeba4love.com and schedule a strategy session so we can chit chat and find out the best pathway for you.
Ooh. Now you got me. Look, my husband and I were talking about making a trip up to Atlanta. We may have to
yes.
make a trip up to see you.
Yes.
Get all the woo 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 and
all
everything.
the woo woo. And we try to have events local events monthly. So we're going to be doing that a lot more. And then I'm offering sound baths and meditation a couple times a month starting at the end of May. So definitely doing a lot more in the community.
And the community, honestly, the way the world is going, the community needs the sound baths and all of the positive energy and everything.
All of the positive energy. Yes, all of the positive energy. And I'm also planning a retreat in Jamaica in July. It's called the Soft Landing. And this is for people in transition. So primarily for people experiencing divorce, but also since there have been so many people who've been laid off of their jobs and things like that, it's an opportunity to feel held, to land softly in whatever this new reality is for yourself and just become empowered in knowing that you're good.
It's kind of nice to have a community, especially with all the changes and stuff. I don't know if you saw the oh my goodness, there was a news article that came out that, like, with all of the changes that are happening in corporate America and all the things that that the first person that basically gets kicked out is us. I think there was like a higher percentage where everybody else's numbers stayed the same, but Black women's numbers of unemployment like increased.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that's shocking, but I'm not very shocked.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Let's see how they do without us.
And more. It's literally. I went to the comments of the article, and I literally almost every single Black woman in the comments were very much stating, "Yeah, I just started my own business. I just did my own thing. I just started my own business. I'm taking my skill set somewhere else where it's appreciated." Honestly,
I really think that that's what we're being called to do more. And starting our own businesses is not an easy thing because you're working hard. But I think the difference is that you're working for yourself. You're working on something that you really care about deeply, and it just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Look, I understand. I'm on the entrepreneurial journey, so it's sometimes. But again, when we talked about it, finding that balance, finding that work-life balance of my job is my job, but I have a life, I have family, I have people that depend on me. But at the same time, I need to take care of myself.
So absolutely,
it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag, and it's a journey. It's a journey. It takes time. Takes time to deprogram ourselves from all the stuff that's been embedded. It's like in our DNA that we have to overperform.
Yeah, look, kind of, again, the cloak, wearing that wonderful cloak. But Dr. Makeba, thank you for sharing your profound insight and for being a beacon of hope and understanding to our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.
Of course. And for the listeners, remember, prioritizing your emotional wellness is not just beneficial, it's essential. Let's continue to challenge stigmas, embrace vulnerability, and support one another on this journey. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself. And if you're in the Atlanta area, reach out to Dr. Makeba for her events. Bye.